Welcome back to the Quick Focus Blueprint program. I am your coach, Jim Quick, and I want to congratulate you once again for showing up. And I know it's repetitive when I say that, but I want to honor you for listening to this program, for going through it, for rolling up your sleeves, and for doing it, because that's where the reward really comes from. And there's a big payoff in this session for you. For a lot of people, this will be one of the highlights of the entire program. I'm going to share with you a tool, a very specific tool or model that can be used to really solve problems well, to have greater levels of focus and clarity, to be able to think better and to make better decisions. And really, our life, when you think about it, is a reflection of our thinking. And our life really is also a reflection of the decisions that we made up to this point. And so, how do you make good decisions? How do you solve problems? It's not something that's really taught in school, right? And there's not a lot of classes in the area of critical thinking or parallel thinking. So that's going to be the topic of this session. And there's going to be a big payoff for it, because if you could make better decisions, if you could solve problems, if you could have clarity and focused thought, it's going to help you to be able to achieve more. And so the technique I'm going to share with you in this episode is called Six Thinking Hats. And it was created by Edward de Bono. And it's a model that can be used for exploring different perspectives. And that's really the key. I've talked about it in various programs where if you want to be able to create a new result, if you want to be able to do something new, if you want to be able to solve a problem, Einstein said the same level of thinking that has created the problem won't solve the problem. And so how do you get different perspectives? Because often it's kind of like the anecdote of these blind monks who are each touching a different part of an elephant, and one is touching the tail and thinks it's a snake, and one is touching the leg and thinks it's a tree trunk, and so on. And so everybody has different perspectives, but how do you maintain different perspectives to a situation so that you could see it from different points of view, so you can make a better decision, a more informed, enriched decision? And so how do you explore these different perspectives and apply it towards a complex situation or maybe a challenge or problem that you have? Seeing things in various ways is often a very good strategy to be able to make a better decision. So Six Thinking Hats is a technique that's designed to help you to deliberately adopt a variety of perspectives on a subject that may be very different from the one that you might most naturally assume. The idea here is that a lot of us get in our own ways, that if you look at a problem from the same lens every single time, you can never get new answers. And I've mentioned a book before called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. And this basically, the book talks about how a lot of big transformation, a lot of big changes in industry, a lot of improvements and innovation in various industries usually comes from somebody outside of the industry, because it takes somebody from the outside to look in to say, hey, why aren't you doing it this way? Because if you're in an industry, most likely you're adopting the same education, the same, also what comes with it, the same limitations, the same blind spots as everybody else. And so perspective really makes a difference. So going back to the Six Thinking Hats, what is it? It's, instead of getting to travel to different places, it's actually a model for where you could switch behind six different points of view. And the metaphor that they use is that of a hat. That when you put on a color hat, there's six different colors in the model. And when you put on a specific hat, you have to look at the problem or the situation or where you're making this decision just from that point of view. So I'm going to go through this model with you, a brief summary of it, and then you don't have to understand it completely, but I'll give you enough to be able to apply this today. And so, for example, there are six hats and six correlating perspectives. And so here's what they are. There's a white one, a red one, a black one, a yellow one, a green one, and a blue one. Now, when you put on a white hat, just imagine, I want you to think about, as we go through this, a very specific problem or decision you need to make. Maybe it's somebody that you're thinking about being friends with. Maybe it's a place that you want to live. Maybe it's a job opportunity, or you're deciding what school to attend. Maybe it's You're thinking about what home to buy. It could be work related, health related, it could be your personal life, relationships, you name it. Think about a problem or a decision that you need to make, and let's do this together. So, the first hat I'm going to talk about in no specific order is the white hat. The white hat. Now, I want you to imagine you have a white top hat in front of you and you put it on. So, even actually, you could play with me and do this. Reach out in front of you, take the white hat, and put it on your head. And when you're wearing the white hat, I want you to look at this problem or this decision through this lens. I want you to look at it as facts. All right? Facts. Focus on information that's available. It's very objective. There are facts. Think about what information that you need and how it could be obtained. So this is the logical way of looking at things. And because I'm the memory guy, I want to give you a mnemonic device, a little basic association to remind you. So white is logic and facts. I want you to imagine a white lab coat, right? A scientist, and they look at everything through objective facts, information that's available, and very clean, clear information. And so that's what you're going to look at it. So you're going to look at this problem or this situation and look at it from an objective standpoint, a logical standpoint. And that's what you're going to do. And now when you take off the white hat, imagine you're taking off the white hat and you're placing it in front of you. And I want you now to grab the red hat, the red hat. And now when you're wearing this red hat, I want you to look at the problem or the decision that you are going to make. And I want you to go through it from a feeling standpoint. This is the hat of emotions. This is the hat of intuition. This is your hat where tell me what your hunch is. And you don't have to give explanation. It's just your current feeling around it. As a memory device, I want you to think about red, think about fire, think about warmth, think about heart, right? Your heart, red. And so that is the perspective of emotions. So now I want you to look at this problem or look at this decision, and how do you feel about this? Just weigh in on your feelings. Get in touch with your feelings, your intuition, and the hunch that you have. Now, we're doing this rather fast, and so you could practice this yourself. Take off the red hat, and I want you to reach now for the black hat, the black hat. And so what I want you to do is the black hat is the hat of judgment. It is your critic. It is why something could go wrong. And so this is the more logical, negative point of view. And it does serve a purpose, doesn't it? A lot of us maybe would have sometimes an optimistic view, and that's not useful to have necessarily all the time, because sometimes you're so optimistic that you're going to get to this meeting, but you hit traffic, so you're not realistic and you don't have a backup plan. Maybe you're so optimistic that everything's going to fall into place exactly the way you're hoping it to, and you don't have a way of compensating when that deal doesn't get closed or that person doesn't see your point of view, okay? So the black hat, again, is the critic. It is the judgmental frame of view. It is looking at things and asking yourself, why could this go wrong? Or what could go wrong about that? And that's helpful when you're looking at decisions. Yes or yes, of course, right? And so if you're looking at this potential job, what could go wrong? If you're looking at this potential home, what could go wrong? And so a memory aid to remind you of this for the black hat is imagine a judge. Imagine a judge wearing black robes, and just imagine that's your critic, that's your judge, okay? Now, the next hat I want you to reach for, take off the black hat, and I want you to put on the yellow hat, the yellow hat. Now, what's the yellow hat? That is the optimistic point of view. And so that you could say is opposite of the black hat. Is optimism. This could be logical, where the black hat was maybe logical negative view. This is your logical positive view. And so when you're wearing this yellow hat and you're looking at this situation or this problem, this decision you need to make, I want you to look at all the benefits. I want you to look at all the benefits. What the optimistic point of view is, what's good about this? What could go right? Whereas the black hat is, why could something go wrong? This is what could go right and what's good about it. What are all the benefits? What's the positive point of view? And to remind you of the yellow hat, I want you to remember sunshine, right? Yellow sun, and it's sunshine and it's optimism. Yellow is the sun. And then we're coming close to the end. I want you now to take off the yellow hat and I want you to grab the green hat, the green hat. And as you put on the green hat, I want you to think of this is the creative hat. This is possibilities. Green is new ideas. So now you want to look through your problem or the decision you need to make, this new level of thinking, and this really is the creative. This is where out of the box, what else? So maybe it's not this house or this house. Maybe it's this apartment. Maybe it's not this person, it's something brand new. And, so it's possibility, it's creative thinking, it's setting up new hypothesis, it's new ideas. And to remind you that the green is creative thinking and possibilities, I want you to think about green vegetation, green growing grass. So new creations, new possibility, new ideas. So green is growth. And then finally, I want you to take off the green hat and I want you to think about your problem or the decision that you're about to make. And this time put on the blue hat. Now the blue hat is really, I think of it as kind of the master control hat. This is the one that is looking above everything else. It's listening to all the other hats and it's thinking about the process. It's thinking about stepping out and listening to each of what the other perspective have, the other hats. It's kind of like the chairperson or the organizer of the whole thing. And so it's looking at everything that's come before this, listening to what the white hat and the red hat and the black hat, the yellow hat, the green hat had to say, and they make the final decision. And so if you want a memory aid to remind you of blue, if I'm thinking about blue skies, right? Blue skies, and it overlooks everything else. And so it controls the other hats. And it's the last one to weigh in. It listens to what all the other hats have to say. And then it moves forward and makes a decision. So that is the model of the Six Thinking Hats. And I would recommend for this lesson is to use this, first of all. I want you to think about like the problem that you have or decision you need to make. And it doesn't have to be a really wildly big one, but maybe it is, or maybe it's something that's smaller. And I would love if you'd be willing to do this is in the comments after you go through this process, you think about this situation, this decision, I want you to practice putting on each of the hats, the white, the red, the black, the yellow, and the green, and the blue, and then see if you can make a better decision than you would normally. Because what most people do is they have a certain point of view, and that's where they live. They're always wearing, metaphorically, the black hat. And some of these people, they're very judgmental, they're very critical, they're always looking at what could go wrong, they're very maybe possibly logically negative. And again, it's not all bad because there's pros and cons, and sometimes it's good. Even when you're building out a team, for instance, it's very powerful because it's nice to have somebody on your team that's going to mismatch. As people are going out and creating things, it's nice to think, what could go wrong here? Or you put on the red hat, you're thinking about which home to move into or where to go to school or what have you. And maybe it's not even something logical. Maybe it's you have to weigh into your feelings, your intuition, right? And the great thing about wearing these hats, it gives you permission to have clarity. I mean, for me, I think there's two purposes to this model. The first is to simplify your thinking by allowing you to deal with just one thing at a time. Instead of having to take care of emotions and logic and information, hope and creativity all at the same time, you're able to deal with them separately. And that's really powerful. If you want to be better focused, you don't want to be overwhelmed, right? So you could take your time and look at it from each perspective. The other reason why I like this model of Six Thinking Hats is it allows you to switch your thinking. Maybe you're at a meeting and it's been really negative, and that person can be asked to take off the black hat. So maybe you're in a meeting at work and somebody's very negative, and if they understand the model, you can say, hey, hold for a second. Let's take off the black hat and let's do something else. Let's put on a yellow thinking hat. And this is a direct request to basically being positive, right? And in this way, the Six Hats provides a model that is definite without being offensive. What is the most important? It doesn't threaten a person's ego or their personality. And by turning it into like a role-playing game, if you will, the concept of the hats makes it possible to request certain types of thinking. And so if you're leading a meeting, you could say, okay, You are wearing the white hat, you're the red hat, you're the black hat, yellow hat, green hat, blue hat. And then you have a discussion from that point of view. And then you can have everyone switch hats. And these hats become kind of a shorthand if people understand this model. And so I know I went a little bit long in this session. I hope it makes sense to you. And so your homework assignment is to take a situation or a big decision or any kind of decision that you need to make and run it through this model: white, red, black, yellow, green, blue, the 6 thinking hats, and put in the comments your ahas. And maybe if you're willing to share with us specifically what challenge you're facing or the problem or decision you'd like to make and how this worked out for you, because we'd love to know, and I think we can learn from each other the best way possible. So thanks to you so much for tuning in to this lesson, and I can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow.